And now it is recording everything that's on my computer. So this will be recorded for posterity, okay? So when we talk about lecturing online, and I do want to say actually kind of two other things. While you guys have been in the workshop, I've added you all to a Blackboard organization, so not a course, but the organization, it's the hybrid workshop organization. So if you go into Blackboard and look in your organizations, you may see another one listed there. There's a lot of good resource material there, and I'll refer back to some of the information there, and I'll be showing that shortly. We also, on My UMBC, there's a group for hybrid learning. Some of you are in it. So if you log into My UMBC and then go to groups, there's one called UMBC Hybrid Learning. If you don't see any groups there, you can always browse and search the groups, look for the ones appropriate for faculty. There's only about 15 of them there, and UMBC Hybrid Learning is listed there. You can click on the button to follow it or join it or whatever it is. Lots of good information in that group, and I would highly suggest if you're interested in teaching hybrid that you join yourself to that group. Okay? Under documents in that group, in effective practices, which is where we are, there are 3 effective practices that I'm going to highlight today. So lecturing online, and then we're going to talk about discussion boards, in particular, how not to grade the "yeah, me too" posts. So a lot of people are interested in getting students to engage outside of class using discussion boards. It can be a little overwhelming. We listened to a couple of people earlier today talk about the amount of grading they had. You really need to think hard about that, because just as those summer and winter classes go fast for students, they also go very fast for the faculty members. So you don't want to design what you think is an awesome class and then realize that you need to grade 20 hours a day in order to actually keep up with it, right? You don't want to put yourself in that boat. So we'll give you some tips and tricks similar to what Katie said she did on how to grade those discussion boards a little more effectively. And then we're going to talk about adaptive release, all right? Is there anybody, there's a couple people out there that have computers. I'll talk about join.me at the end if I have time. I think I've actually got it logged in on this machine. So there's a variety of information here about lecturing online. Some of this is a little bit older, so there's online lecture options, a variety of different programs that are linked to here. There's one program here called Jing. So if Cam Relay is a little intense for you and you're thinking like, boy, I'm not sure if I want to do this, right? I don't know if I want to load software on my computer. This is kind of a really big deal. Jing is an awesome free tool that you can download, platform non-specific again, that will allow you to create up to 5-minute screencasts. And you post them up in the ether. You have to have a corresponding screencast.com account, also free. But you can create these little videos and you get a nice tiny little URL or a short URL to send out to your students or to post in Blackboard. So if you've ever had the experience where you've had to explain the same thing on a computer, how to format a Word document, how to find particular references through the library's webpage, how to use a particular database, how to set up an Excel spreadsheet in the way that you want them to set it up, how to format axes on a complicated graph for whatever class it is you're teaching, how to use some specific science software for a lab, so whatever it is you guys are using, right? So some Vernier software or something. How to do anything, how to register for classes, how to go through degree audit for that matter. Anything, I used to try to explain it in email. Well, then you click on that thing and then this other thing. It's much easier to do visually. So if you've ever had to explain something to more than 2 students, you should download Jing and figure it out. Jing is very simple. When you download it, you get this cute little sort of sun in my dock, or it would be a shortcut. I've got the program running, and if you look in the upper, what's this, right corner, you see the little sun kind of sitting up there, and there are a couple of little options. One of those options is this little guy, and I can just capture as much of my screen as I want. And similar to Camtasia Relay when I started it, I have some choices down here where I can do a video screen capture, or I could just do a still shot, so I could just do one screen capture, right? I can do a screencast, or I can do a screen capture. I can abort out of the situation if I wanted to, but if I click on the little film strip thing, it says capture a video. It's going to give me the 3-second warning, my microphone is on, and now it is recording everything that I'm doing. So wherever I click, anything that I do on here, I can walk through the process. And then you click here in Excel and you enter your data and then poke over here and highlight the whole mess and do your graph. Or then in Blackboard, if you click on the course document button and go to week 3, you will find assignment 3, right, for all the students that can't find it. Whatever it is you want to do, you can create these short little videos. When you're done, you just finish. It gives you a chance to review it. There is no editing, all right? So no editing at all. Let's see if I can. My microphone is on, and now it is recording everything that I'm doing. So wherever I click, anything that I do. All right, so I'm fine with that. I don't care what I have to say. So I'm fine with it. And then down here, I have an option to give it a meaningful name. I would highly encourage you to actually name Jings as something that's meaningful. I never do. I have about 200 Jings in a big folder on screencast.com that have date and timestamps on them, and I have no idea what they are. I can log into screencast.com and I can see how many people looked at them. So if it was from 2010 and nobody's ever looked at it, it's getting deleted. For those of you that have ever put in an RT ticket and you've gotten a little Jing back from, hi, this is Karen, and I'm going to demonstrate how to fix your problem in Blackboard. Blah, 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 blah. I can tell if you ever actually watched the Jing I sent you. Some people that never watched them never get them again. So assuming I'll follow my normal protocol and not give it a meaningful name, I can just click this little button to share it via screencast. It's a little upload button. It uploads it up there, tells me how big it is. Poof, it's done. And this is the best part. It's just saved the URL right in my desktop or my clipboard. So what I can do is I could go back to Blackboard. So I'm going to say, okay, yeah, I know that. I'm going to go back to Blackboard. I'm just going to go in a folder. Let's go here to Resources. And let's say I want to post that for students to see. I can build my content. I can give it a name and say, here is the cool video. I can paste that URL in there. I could give it a description if I wanted to, so blah, blah, blah. I could add an attachment, right? So if I had watched this video and then answer these, think about these questions before you come to class next time. Whoops. And then I can, if I can get to it. Oh, thank you. There we go. I can hit submit. Somehow it didn't like what I did. Oh, well, it redid it. There we go. I'll be even lazier. And there it is, right? So it's this nice web link. If students were to click on it, it'll open up and it'll just play that little video. So if you ever find yourself doing, literally answering the same question, I used to answer tons of questions in Science 100, just basic questions about how to set up Excel. Put time in the first column, then your data here. Label the columns with these words. Here's how to create a graph. I was so tired of explaining that to individuals, 100 students, I'd have to explain it individually to 15. One Jing, beat it to the punch, it's up there, then you can use it next semester and the semester after that and semester after that. Question or no?
Yeah, stepped out for a moment. The difference, I don't know if you went over this or not, the difference between Camtasia Relay and Camtasia the full package?
Camtasia Relay is free to you. That's a bonus. Camtasia, the full package, gives you lots more options for editing, and you buy it, or you get your department to buy it. I like free. Free is good. So the other thing, when you do a video with Camtasia, then you're faced with, so the full product, right? Then you're faced with where are you going to put that video? So you've done a great video, what are you going to do with it? You can save it in a format that you can manually put it up in iTunes U, or you could, on your own, create your own YouTube channel, and you could upload it to YouTube. But you're probably not going to be able to just dump those into Blackboard and kind of be done with it, because you're going to run out of quota. So Camtasia, the product, you got to pay for. Camtasia Relay, we give you an account, and you can download it on as many computers as you want. You can have it at home. You can have it on your laptop. You can have it on your desktop. Put it on a lecture hall computer. I mean, you can have it everywhere. And then Jing, free again, and we actually do have Jing, and this is a good thing. We have Jing on the images on the lab computers all across campus, though weirdly enough, not on this computer. So for instance, if a student ever has an issue, or if you want students to create screencasts, here's how I found this cool resource through this library database. You can have them create Jings and then share those with the rest of the students in the class, post them in discussion boards. But 5 minutes, right? Jing is limited to 5 minutes. Camtasia Relay, infinite, but that brings up actually a really good point. Does anybody remember how long Katie Morris said that she did some videos using either Camtasia or Camtasia Relay? Do you remember how long she said her videos were?
10 minutes.
10 to 15 minutes? What do you think is a good rule of thumb for videos online? 10 to 15 minutes. Some of you actually teach one night a week, right? Yeah, you do not. And this is like not big, huge, glaring letters, neon, people bunking you on the head with this. You don't want to do a 3-hour video and put it up online and expect that students are going to watch it. So think about this. Would you watch it for 3 hours? I join in webinars and I space out after. I think attention span, Linda, you may remember the data on this. Attention span for students is like 7 minutes and 42 seconds or something like that, they're gone after that. So 15 minutes, that's like the maximum. You should think about that as maximum. So if you have an hour-long lecture, if what you're doing, you have an hour-long PowerPoint, so a PowerPoint that typically takes you an hour long to go through in class, divide that into 4 chunks. You can separate those slides out, figure it out, right? Or maybe retool the way you go through that content. It's up to you, and it depends on what your content is and how you actually want to put that material out. So Lark and then Lily, you guys can duke it out.
What if you just take it and stop and have them do an activity? Does that help with the watchability issue? So I just did 30 minutes. And
you can, though I'll tell you, sometimes, and I think, John, you may have found, somebody had this data on this, that if students see it's a video, it's 50 minutes long, they're less likely to watch it than if there are 5 10-minute videos. They see 10 minutes and go, I can watch that. And that's pretty interesting, so they go on to the next one. So they may actually sit there for 50 minutes watching one video after another, but if you face them with one 50-minute video, it's like the immediate, they don't want to do it. So yeah, I mean, if you already have a 30-minute video, then you might think about, okay, giving them explicit instructions. Watch the first 15 minutes of this, then stop it and do blah, 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 whatever it is. There are plenty of people out there on this campus who do hour-long videos because, by God, that's what their PowerPoint is. They normally lecture for an hour and 15 minutes, and their PowerPoint is set up that way, and it's just completely inconceivable it's all one big train of thought, and they can't undo that. Well, maybe their students actually break it up on their own. I don't know. There are also people that do 3-hour lectures, and that, to me, is just like...
Can you manually edit it and divide it up into, take a 1 hour, divide it up into 4 parts?
Not with Cam Relay, certainly not with Jing, which only lets you do 5 minutes either. I mean, I think if you had a Cam Relay file, you could take that and import it back into Camtasia, assuming you bought that, and then you can do all the fancier editing, and then, save it however you want and put it wherever. But it's going to take a lot more of your work. So I'm all about free, and I'm all about, one shot. So I'll have a little timer. You've got the little timer will be going, right? So you know how long you're going for. So, go for 10 minutes and then kind of call it a day. Or you ought to be able to look at a PowerPoint, I think. John?
Karen's right. I mean, there's more editing features in other programs, but once you start getting into timeline video editing, the complexity goes way up. So you have to make a choice as to what's your time worth and what you want to spend it on. You might be able to edit it down to exactly that perfect sequence of what you want, but again, going back to the ums and ahs and whatever, are you going to do that normally? And how many of these you can do? What's your learning curve? How long do you want to take to learn how to do this? Because it's a different process than writing. Video editing is different than writing.
And also think about, and Lisa, right? Is it Lisa? Yeah. Also think about if there are pieces of your lecture that could be evergreen, which means you use this little bit of your lecture, and I'll pick on Lily, either when you're teaching, you always do this like 15-minute little bit if you're teaching Physics 111 or Physics 112 or Physics 121 or Physics 122, whatever that little nougat is. You know, maybe you take a little more care when you build that 15-minute little nougat because you're going to be able to use it semester after semester in a multitude of courses. So it's a lot easier to, you know, redo a new 10-minute little segment if, you know, you guys are in all different kinds of disciplines. So I was working with somebody this spring who's in poli-sci, and they were trying to capitalize on some, you know, big world events that were very timely. So if you've got an hour-long video or, you know, a lecture that's covering something that's a little bit dated, you know, in another year, it's going to look really dated. But if you can think about little evergreen bits you can do that are never going to change, right? So I don't know, some history of Newton or something, right? That's not going to change, right? So, you know, you do those separately and then do your little timely mini lectures and incorporate the new information, whatever's hot for that semester, whatever the new bio thing is or the new genetics thing or, you know, new issues in sociology, whatever it happens to be. Lisa.
Do you know what the file formats are?
Off the top of my, I think file formats for Camtasia Relay. Yeah, Jing saves as SWF. Cam Relay, well, it can save in the format to go in. I think it depends on how Anna sets up your profile, so it depends on where you're going to publish. So,
There's a variety of formats.
Yeah.
MP4, MOV.
You can do MP3, so it can just strip out the audio. Yeah, so there's a multitude of options. So it depends. I mean, the whole process starts when somebody, if you're going to use Camtasia Relay, the whole process starts when you submit an RT ticket saying, I'm interested. Went to the hybrid workshop. I'm really interested in using Camtasia Relay. Talk to me. And someone will get back to you with, you know, what course are you using this for? How do you want to publish? Because they need to set up a profile for you. So is it going to be in iTunes? You'll need to enable that course ahead of time.
And the difference between uploading it to iTunes U and YouTube, it sounds like YouTube, you might have more space, but even just like procedurally?
Well, the upload process procedurally, if you're using Camtasia Relay, is completely seamless to you. It just goes there and then notifies you, hey, it's there. It's a little bit easier, I think. I personally like having a YouTube channel and then publishing there because it's easier to get the URL and you can embed those videos right in your Blackboard class. iTunes U, no matter how many videos you have in your class, they would link to the iTunes U site for your course, and then you would just see a list of all those videos there. So if you have 50 different videos, you better have a good naming convention or segment them out into different tabs or something. So students, and you know, if they're in iTunes U, one benefit is that a student can download them to their, whatever their device of choice is. So maybe they want to keep listening to you while they're over on the Stairmaster in the gym over and over and over again. Lots of students actually do that. If it's in YouTube, you know, they're not going to have that capacity. And you have a little more control. So you can point them to YouTube and let them get lost with, you know, puppies and weird guys and whatever else, or you can kind of control that in Blackboard. There's a mashup tool in Blackboard that you can use. Oh, okay. John's keeping me on time.
Well, here's the thing. You all know this is Karen's last day. Tom and Carlton, they will help us all on the debugging and figuring this stuff out. I really want you to hear what she has, what her expertise is, and having done this. So I've told her I'm going to give her the hook.
Yeah, at 3:15 I have the hook, and I am bound and determined to get you all out of here. Okay. So on the lecturing component, this whole portion is probably the longest part anyway, so give you stuff to think about. On the lecturing component, there's one other option. So we have a web conferencing tool that's built into Blackboard, or it's an add-on with Blackboard, and it's called Blackboard Collaborate. Has anybody used it out there? Yay! All right, you're an ISD, so you actually don't count. You do count, but I would expect you to have used it in that program. So it's part of your graduate courses, right?
Is
Yes.
it something we have access to?
Yes, ma'am. You have access to this.
All right.
You have it, and it's free again. Well, it's free to you guys.
Heard about it.
It's free to you guys.
All right.
So Blackboard Collaborate is similar to Adobe Connect or WebEx or, I don't know, pick your favorite other web conferencing tool out there. There's like a bazillion of them, okay? So you have access to this. So think about this not only in terms of your class, but think about the other applications of being able to have a live classroom, if you will, online where everybody can just join in from the leisure of their homes. I always say in their jammies with a glass of wine, you know, teaching or conversing. You can have, if you're in a department and you're going on sabbatical, you can actually have a Blackboard Collaborate room where you can join in and talk to your colleagues. If you have colleagues in other countries, you can have a Blackboard Collaborate site that you can open up to other people, right? So if you're teaching a class and you've got this expert in the field in Finland, and you want them to join in and talk to your students here at UMBC at a particular time, you can send them a link and they can click on it and they can join in and voila, there you go, right? They can join in voice over IP so they can talk, they can upload PowerPoint presentations, they could go through a whole lecture, and even better, you can record the whole mess and put the recording in your Blackboard site, or there's a link that you can send out to everybody else. So Katie Morris, who was here earlier, she meets at least once or twice a semester synchronously, all at the same time, online with her Social Work 240 students that are out at Shady Grove. They don't have to come to school, but she delivers her lecture online, and they're all online at the same time. And she records it just in case somebody wants to go back and review it later on. For those of you that do office hours, and this is a great option if you happen to have TAs. Students never come at 8 o'clock in the morning when I would like to do office hours because that's when I'm awake and I have time. Instead, you could do some office hours at 7 o'clock at night. They could be home or they could be in their office. They've got a classroom set up. And anybody who needs help could go to that link and join in and ask whatever their question is. You can answer it. They can leave. You can just kind of hang out and see if anybody else joins in. We've done Blackboard support help at the beginning of semesters using Blackboard Collaborate. So people have questions, part-time faculty, if they have questions about Blackboard, they can join in. So what I did is I created a Blackboard Collaborate link in this course here. And I've actually already joined in, I thought, but it doesn't look like it's there. So let's see if I can join in again. All right, so this is all Java-based. So I clicked on the link. My computer's set up to download files locally. Some people have their computer browser set up to just open things up. So I have to find that link. It's a JNLP file. I'm going to open it. Whoa, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry. I got too frisky. Run. I wanted to run it. And it's opening up Blackboard Collaborate, and it's going to open up a screen that looks typical to, a WebEx kind of thing. Yeah, I'm already in there. Okay, so let's just cancel. So it opens up a screen, and I guess since I'm already in, but I can't apparently find it wherever it happens to be. Maybe it's down here. Oh, there it is. No, that's not it. All right, well, we'll just go here. It'll open up a screen and it'll show you the participants that are in there. It'll show you sort of a whiteboard area. You can upload content into it. There's a chat window down here, so people can chat. It'll record all the chat, so traditional chat, so students can chat back and forth or ask you questions. There's microphone option. Actually, my audio-video panel is kind of switched around, so let me move this up. And let's expand that. If I wanted to turn my camera on, I could. It'd probably be hitting my mid-side, so I won't. So you can have your little voice, your face there. We typically say, if you're lecturing live, you might just want to put a static image there or show yourself live for a few seconds and then just turn the camera off because sometimes it can be sort of distracting if you're going to be talking to somebody for 15 or 20 minutes. There's a microphone option, so you can share the mic. You can pass the mic to your students. So if your students have access to, say, a headset microphone, and on that note, I have parting gifts for you. So we have a box of headset microphones. So each of you here gets to walk away with a $28 headset microphone. So you can go home and practice on Blackboard Collaborate. Tom is like squealing with delight. I have one for you too. So you get bonus prizes from me today. And you can upload all sorts of content. So we could just draw on the whiteboard if we wanted to. So, we could just draw stuff. We could import images. There's math stuff. There's, I don't know, all sorts of other stuff here, right? Yes, you could. So you could load content, and there's a variety of different types of content. So you could upload a PowerPoint presentation. You can't upload everything. So I don't think it'll take a Word document directly, but if you put that into a PowerPoint presentation, you could upload that. You could also, instead of that, you could do this. You can, let's see if it's going to let me do it. It's not going to let me do it. Clear page. Yes. Might be the way I actually set this up and the fact that it doesn't show me as a participant in here. But you can share applications. So I could actually share my entire desktop, or I could have Word open with a file, and I could just share Word, and then I could literally walk through marking up that paper. So you could do it live at an office hour situation, or students could say, hey, I've got this paper. You could pass them control so they could share their desktop, and then you could walk through marking it up. It's another alternative to using something like Camtasia Relay. So it allows both synchronous but also asynchronous ability. Some faculty on campus are using Blackboard Collaborate to record their lectures because they just find it easier than, I don't know, somehow it's easier, or they may have some participants in there, so it may be partially synchronous. If you have a colleague and you want to have a conversation sort of like duking it out, and you want to record that for your students to hear, you can use Collaborate to do that. I think for the office hours, it's an awesome idea because you can be at your desk doing whatever it is that you really want to be doing. You can be home knitting, whatever it is you want to be doing, and with your laptop kind of sitting there. And if people pop in, they pop in, right? It's all just done by computer. Nobody actually has to go anywhere. For instructional continuity, if we get another snowmageddon or hurricane season's already started, right? We get another hurricane. This is your baby. You're home. You're stuck. When I hand you that headset microphone, do not go take it to your office and leave it there. Take it home and leave it at home where your home computer is. So that when you're stuck with 50 inches of snow, like I was during Snowmageddon, stuck at home literally, can't get out of my driveway, I had my headset microphone and I could still lecture and I could post it on Blackboard, and I made my students still do all their work that they were supposed to do, as opposed to canceling class because I couldn't lecture. Okay? So we do have all sorts of, and I think I had this up, for a reason. We do have all sorts of information in our FAQs, which I want to keep pointing you back to. If you just go to umbc.edu/FAQ, you will end up at our lovely FAQ site. Thank you, Andrea, who's the queen of FAQs. We have lots of information here about all different kinds of products, including Blackboard Collaborate. A lot of articles here. There's lots of information. Some of this will point directly back to the Collaborate websites with information for moderator resources, all different tools, and then farther down there's participant information. So students, there's a great website to check to make sure that your system has the right requirements. You've got the right operating, a more recent operating system, so not something that's really ancient, and you've got the right version of Java. It'll check for you. All different kinds of information here about how to set up a Blackboard Collaborate session in your Blackboard class, how to share it outside of your Blackboard class, how to post the recording, all different kinds of information here. And I'd also encourage you to go to any of the Blackboard drop-in sessions should you have questions about that. So Joan is often there. She's the Collaborate queen too. She can help you out.
Who's the Collaborate queen?
Joan in the back.
Is that like periodically, you have those periodically?
There'll be Blackboard drop-in sessions. Usually we have them at the beginning of the summer. I don't think there are any more scheduled right now, and they'll pick back up usually in August.
You can contact us and we can just sit down and do it. Actually, I like it.
So again, a great thing to do is to put in that RT ticket and say, hey, I was at the hybrid workshop and they talked about this thing called Blackboard Collaborate, help. And somebody will contact you and figure out what you want to do and how to do it. In the meantime, I'd encourage you to at least rifle through the FAQs because there's a lot of good information there too. Okay. So I'm in sort of this somewhat distressing thing when you leave Blackboard Collaborate. This is as a student or a faculty member, you just have to close out. It'll usually, as a faculty member, it'll give you the notice like, are you sure you want to leave? Yes. You know, if you'd started recording it, it would tell you, you know, do you want to end the recording? Yes, little voice would happen. Okay. So we've given you a couple of different tools for lecturing online. The next thing I'm going to talk about is managing online discussions. And really what I want to focus on is something that we call, so it's managing online discussions. It's the next page in your manual and the following couple of pages. Something that we refer to as the discussion board portfolio option. So I would like to encourage you to think about a couple of things when you do discussion boards in Blackboard. So let me go to Blackboard. If I were going to set up a discussion board, and I'm going to do that right now to demonstrate a couple of the settings for good reason. Within Blackboard, it's an interactive tool, so I'm going to click on the Tools button. As long as I'm in a content area, I'm going to set up a discussion board. I don't want to link to a pre-existing one. I want to create a new forum. I'm going to give it a name. Cap lock button is on, apparently. I could put a description here. The forum's available, and now let's look at these settings. You have a variety of choices when you set up a discussion board. You can either allow anonymous posts or not. I don't, because I want students to think about what they write. With one exception, I usually would have a discussion board for, I'll call it stupid questions, because students always think they have them, but they never do. They're actually perfectly valid questions, but they're embarrassed to ask them. So I'd have a board for questions that would be completely anonymous. A student could choose to post their question anonymously, and then I'd answer them, right? So if they had those questions that they were embarrassed to ask and they didn't want their name associated with it, I would allow them that option. For anything for work, I wouldn't. Though I do know, let me go through the rest of it, and I'll give you one other example of somebody that uses anonymous discussion boards. I never allow authors to delete their own posts either because, again, I want them to think about what they type first. So I don't want them to edit it because they can edit it by removing everything and leaving one character of white space. That's kind of like the same as deleting. So I want students to think about what they type before they actually just post it, especially if it's a provocative topic or something a little touchy. I don't want them to just go off and like blah, 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 on a rant and then go, oopsie, delete after they realize they've ticked off the rest of the class. So you can allow post tagging, allowing users to reply with quotes. Yeah, that's a good thing. You want them to be able to quote somebody else and reply back. Allowing file attachments, sure. I want people to be able to attach things in a discussion board. I certainly want them to be able to create new threads, though I do know some faculty members who really don't. They want to ensure I start the thread and everybody can just reply to it. They can't start their own threads. But this section right here is key. The default is to not allow subscriptions. It's horrible. I want to change this so bad and I can't. I can't figure out how. You should always either allow members to subscribe to individual threads or, I like even better, allow them to subscribe to the whole forum. At least set the forum up so those that want to can subscribe to it. That way, if I type something and Ilsa responds to me in the discussion board, I actually get pinged with an email that, hey, somebody responded to your thread or somebody posted in that forum. That draws me back into the conversation, as opposed to me, the student, having to remember to go into that particular discussion board in that particular Blackboard class and rifle through the whole thing to see what new information is there. Or did anybody respond to me? Let me find my post and see if it's in there. So the ability to subscribe helps engage those students a lot, all right? And it also helps engage the faculty members. A lot of the discussion boards that are affiliated with these processes, so the hybrid workshop or the alternate delivery program, I've enabled subscription and I subscribe to. So when somebody asks me a question, I get pinged with it and I know to go back and look, okay? And if you allow members to subscribe to a forum, you can include the body of the post in the email or just a link to the post. So from the email, you can click on the link and you immediately get shunted in, log into Blackboard, and there you are right in the class. You know right where that discussion is. You can also allow members to rate posts. You can force moderation of posts. You know, that's not checked, and that's a good thing. If you have 100 students and you really want to double check every single posting before they post on a discussion board, you are a better person than I am. Right? You probably really don't want to check everybody's work before it gets posted. You can also allow grading in the forum. You can either grade individual threads or you could grade the entire forum, have to assign it to a certain amount of points. We'll just ignore the alignment section. You know, a little cautious here. If you're going to grade individual threads, again, if you've got 100 students and they're each typing 20 different things, start doing the math. You're going to have a lot of grading to do. I would argue that there are better ways to do this and that you have better uses of your time. So I'll go ahead and just submit this. Sure, let's just do that. All right, so it's done. The concept of a portfolio Katie talked about when she said what she does is that she lets students, at the end of the semester, she actually lets students or asks students to tally up the best of their work from certain time periods and then submit that as a particular assignment at the end. So instead of you hunting through all those posts to find out how much work somebody did, put the burden back on the student. You did the work, you find the best of your work, and then you give it to me. And even further, if you have a very discrete rubric for students, so a good post is worth 5 points and it would be X, you know, something along those lines, then students know what they're supposed to do, and not only do they have to find the work and put it in a document, they have to self-grade themselves according to the rubric you provided them. Then you can always reserve the right to increase the grade, decrease the grade, or leave the grade the same, right? But instead of grading every single assignment out there, you just have what you think is the best of their work. Now, as Katie said, you know, certainly sometimes people will wait until the bitter end and they'll try to get all their work in the 2 days before the end of the semester. So if you have some discrete time deadlines, I need 1 post plus 2 responses from February, 1 post plus 2 responses from March, you know, something like that, you know, you can come up with whatever kind of rubric or metric you want for this. Some people, I used to do it in Science 100, and I would have between 100 and 200 portfolios turned in at the end of the semester, each with, you know, roughly 10 or 20, depending on how much pain I want to inflict on myself, posts. It would all be self-graded, and I literally would just kind of look at it, and I would randomly select a couple and look. If the grade seemed kosher, that's the grade they got. If the grades didn't, they got a different grade. All right, I went back through and graded it kind of religiously. I have examples here. So the next couple sheets in your handout are some documents that I think John put together when he was teaching English/IS 387. It was a summer class? Winter class? Summer class. Let me pull these up. All right, so this is the first document, which just describes the assignment. So it describes the participation. This is an example, you know, describes the requirements. So examples must occur in separate weeks. He has a full explanation of the different types of interaction. So is it student content, student group kind of interaction, right? So are you asking the students, depending on what you're doing, are you asking them to interact with the content and think about it and then post something? Or are you asking them to really engage in dialogue with another student or within their group overall? There's grading. So he's got this lovely little kind of grading rubric here. So what constitutes a good post? What constitutes, you know, a low grade? For the group responses to your original post, they needed to include at least 3. And there's the grading rubric for that. All right, so here's the assignment description and all the possible grading. So the students know right the first day of class, this is what I'm going to need to do, and this is exactly how I'm going to be graded on this. And then he had, let's see. I don't know where it went. Here it is. Whoops, my bad. here's the template. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Here's the template that he used. He provided to the students. So this was just a Microsoft Word template. So you got standardized information from all of the students. All right? So all of the students turned in exactly the same type of document, just with different things in here. So each of these is just a little form that they would fill out. So they put their name in there, the total points out of 44 that they said they got, and then all of the information. So for week 1, what was the article, the question or observation they posted, so they would post their contact there, what kind of response it was. Here's the various responses, here's the assessment. They had to do all the work. They had to prove to you that they had done this work. So, which way would you want to do it? Do you want to go hunting and finding all this information, or do you want the students to actually learn something by assembling this document for you, right? It asks them to kind of reflect. And even further, you could ask them, and for the life of me, I don't remember if John did this on his. Right, so there's the grading for week 2, there's the responses, the questions and observations you responded to, the grading. You could even have them reflect, what did you learn on this particular unit if you were going to have them turn in a portfolio at various points in time over the semester? What did you learn? What did you learn? What other points of view do you now consider based on these conversations you had with your group or with your peers in your class? So you could turn this into a reflection piece really at the end of the semester as well, or midway through the semester. Okay? So this can actually be, I think, in one of the classes that John worked with, graduate level LLC class, through kind of a redesign of the course, the engagement of students in the discussion board increased dramatically. So by giving them good questions to respond to, so good prompts to begin with, some focus, and then giving people with all of the information on how they're going to be graded and what it is you're expecting from them, you actually can up the bar with the sorts of comments and dialogue that occur. Okay? Plus, you reduce your grading time, because really you have more to do than to grade every single post that's in there. That's just nuts. And like a couple people said, when I had a ton of students, so either 100 or 200 Science 100 students, I would have discussion boards that would just go rampant. And I didn't read every post. I'd go in periodically. At the beginning of the semester, let's do a little ground truthing and make sure they're not going crazy, keeping them on task. And then periodically, I'd go in and look, and I'd find something, and I'd bring that back to class, the face-to-face time, or an announcement like Katie mentioned, or Sarah mentioned, I think, because the students like to know that they got noticed. So you do that enough to sort of a smattering of students, and they actually start thinking that you're reading every single post that's out there. You read enough to get the lay of the land of what's going on with your students. Carlton.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really think that this is a powerful technique for putting the onus on the student to really self-reflect, like you said. I'm planning on implementing this in my 601 class in the fall. Just kind of conceptualizing right now how I want it to work, but it definitely alleviates a lot of the pain of, doing the discussion board evaluations, and it's a self-regulated activity that students can engage in, so I think it's really helpful.
And especially if you ask them to, you guys should actually, and when you turn in your portfolio, reflect on why is this the best of your work. So not just this is what you turned in, but why did you select this versus some of the other things. And I'll be honest, with the Science 100 students, okay, the ones that didn't participate, they wouldn't turn in the portfolio. And I would run this all semester long, one portfolio at the end of the semester, no midterm stuff, because I had too many other things to do, too much other work to grade. So portfolio due, 0 tolerance for a late portfolio. It was due at noon on a day, and if it wasn't in Blackboard, I didn't take it unless somebody literally had body parts falling off or something, and they came to me with proof, right? I wouldn't take things late. If they did all the work all semester long and they didn't turn in a portfolio, 10% of your grade was 0. That was just my rule, but they knew that in the syllabus. It was in the syllabus quiz. They knew it the first day of class. They were reminded of it all semester long. So, portfolio came in at the end. This is the best of your work. If the students didn't do it, over 10 and a half years, I can think of one example of a student who tried, and it wasn't even my student, it was the other lecturer's student, who tried to fudge, and they turned in a portfolio with other students' work. But, they copied the other students' names into that template. So it was kind of obvious, and it went to academic conduct because it was bad, right? And the student didn't contest because they admitted that they were trying to, pull one over on me because they hadn't done squat all semester. The students that only did 2 posts, they would turn in, I get 10 out of 100 points. And I'd go, yep, you do. There's your 10. Piece of cake. Take me 2 hours to grade 100, 120 of these things. Because I would just flip through, ground truth, there's the grade, moving on. Maria.
Something really helpful that you mentioned, I will take, is the reflection piece, adding to this. Because one of the problems that I'm afraid to overlook is misconceptions going through the discussion board. Like saying, oh, the 5 de julio is the day that they killed Emiliano Zapata. No. Well, you are afraid of missing that and figuring that somebody believed that was true the day of the exam when they write it down. And that's too late for you to say that's wrong.
Right.
You have to address it, what happens in the discussion board for the portfolio.
John.
You can still participate in the discussion and correct misconceptions. In fact, the students can use your replies as evidence that they have asked a good question. It just, it's the difference between putting the onus on them to manage the discussion versus you doing it. I'm sorry, I just have to brag on Karen here a little bit because she came up with this whole idea and I just kind of stole it and kind of tweaked it further. She's also done an analysis of hybrid courses that went through the program that were trained, and the activity in Blackboard engaging the students off the charts compared to those who had not. I wouldn't say we're solid gold on this, research or the data yet, and I'm sorry that she's leaving so that we can't continue it, but, it's, the evidence is compelling, that, I think grading discussions is built on the premise of scarcity. That if the worst thing you have in a discussion is people don't show up. Well, what's the worst case that happens? What if they all do, and they post 10 billion times? Now the grading premise just doesn't work. Now it's all on you. So this is really trying to prepare for success rather than, perfectly.
Okay, any other questions about discussion board? So seriously, enable subscription. You'll be thankful for it. Yeah,
In your
Mark.
experience, suppose you sort of require the student watch a video at this particular time, that's the only time they can watch it. Does that work better? And then after that, everybody has watched, or they haven't watched it, then they meet with their people, collaborate with people in their group, and they solve problems or things like that? Or do you just sort of leave it open-ended so they can sort of...
That's a wonderful segue because we are about to move into adaptive release, so kind of putting more of the burden on students for controlling their own learning. My personal philosophy is if I'm going to put a video up for students, or, so I know a lot of people who do discussion boards, but then they shut the discussion board down, meaning they don't even allow students to see it after a certain period of time. Well, yeah, that was all this awesome discussion, and now you're just closing it off so they can't go back and revisit it. I honestly don't get that. So if I'm going to go through the work of putting a video online, and once students are supposed to watch it, I want to make sure that it's actually accessible to them after that. But what you could do instead is the use of that tool, adaptive release, so we'll turn our attention to that, to control access to other, you have to watch the video in order to get access to something else which you're going to need for that group discussion or whatever the next activity is. So, personally, I do a video, actually I just put it up there and let people watch it, but I might actually say, you're going to have to at least mark this video as reviewed. You can't force somebody to watch a video, but you can force them to poke a button where they're actively saying, yes, I have reviewed this. They might be lying. We all do that when we install new software and we go, yeah, we read the license. Click, moving on, right? We never read the license. Nobody ever reads the license. The little fine print, nobody reads. Well, one of you might read that, but I don't read that. My husband is twisting around at home now because he does those licenses. So, but instead, you can't force somebody to watch it, but you can force them to take the action saying that they have reviewed it. So let's talk about adaptive release, and I can talk about the various rules because we're going to run out of time on that. Okay, so let me close these down. So the next, if we went back to effective practices, there's one more here. about managing content using adaptive release, I'd really encourage you guys to go here and certainly watch a couple of these, using Blackboard to help students to take responsibility for learning, or especially this using adaptive release to implement game-based learning in Blackboard. There have been some lovely presentations over the past year, some panel discussions, as well as other discussions from faculty doing really cool things using adaptive release. So again, adaptive release is just a tool in Blackboard which allows you to, through logical rules, control access to content for students. So you can control student access to content by a couple of things, either by time, but you can do that in Blackboard anyway, right? You can't get this content until after next Monday. Well, you can do that anyway. By either individual user or membership in a group. I want this group to read this case study, but I don't want anybody else to see it. And I want this group to read this case study, and I don't want anybody else to see it, because I want them to come into class for discussion having some different kind of background preparation. Does that make sense? It could be that I want this group to do this particular assignment and this group to do this other assignment, right? So it could be group-based. It can also be based on grade or attempt. You have to get at least a grade of X on this assignment or this quiz or this other thing in order to see whatever this other content is. So a couple people talked about that earlier today in the context of a syllabus quiz. How many of you are tired of spending the first half of your day in class talking about your syllabus? Assuming that your students could actually read, but they never do, so you feel obligated to actually go through it with a fine-tooth comb. I hated it because I felt like the first day was, no, don't do this and don't do that, and you got to do this, and no. And the students are like, or they think, oh, the first week is optional because, all they're going to do is go over the syllabus, and that doesn't matter, right? And they're the same students that halfway through the semester say, oh, I didn't know that. I never read the syllabus. Well, none of that. So we instilled a very simple syllabus quiz in Science 100. I'm not going to cover the syllabus. We're going to dive right in and start talking about science. Here's the syllabus. You guys should read it. Before the first written assignment is due, you need to have taken the syllabus quiz and you get 100%. True, false questions, you can take it a gazillion times, as many times as it takes. We give you the right answers, and it's true, false, so it really only should take twice. I think the record was about 8. I would tell the students that I know how many times it takes them. It's not like we had a pool of questions. It was just 20 questions. They were the same ones, right? But it saved my bacon because halfway through the semester when a student came and said, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to turn that in to Safe Assign as well as bring a hard copy to class, I'd go, really? Let's pull up your syllabus quiz. Look, question 6 says, all assignments must be turned in to Safe Assign as well as a hard copy turned in at the start of your lab to your TA. True, false? You answered true. So you knew it 4 weeks ago. And they went, okay, thanks, bye. And they walked out of my office. So, that's a great example. It could also be, I want you to do the reading and master the reading before you get to look at this problem set. Or this kind of math builds on itself, so you need to understand this concept before you get to move on. And sometimes students will want to move on when they really oughtn't, right? They don't understand all that material. So they really do need, you can kind of force them. You have to get a certain grade here before you can move on. Sometimes it's just an attempt. So Tim Finn, I'm sorry he's not here. He is just an awesome guy in ancient studies. So they've just hired him on for a tenure-track line in the fall. He's been teaching here for a while. And he, and actually John Birkenmeyer, who's in history, they both deal with pretty complex original text. It's hard material for students to read, so it's advanced students. It's really complicated, translated sometimes, right? It's just really complicated material. And what both of them like is for the students to sort of grapple with that material first, and then have the ability, turn in some assignment. And only after that assignment gets turned in do they get the little screencast video of the professor, of the instructor, walking through the material, kind of unpacking it. It's like peeking over the shoulder of an expert. here's how I would read this material. When I read this is what I would think of, and I would look at, I would equate these two portions here. I'd look up these terms. I would have this other document open at the same time so I can cross-reference whatever it is that they do when they read those complex texts. So instead of just giving the answer to the students up front without them doing the work, they have to do the work. They have to attempt an assignment, not even get a grade on it, but just submit something before they get to see that unpacking, right? And that was a way that they hybridized their classes because they ran out of class time and they still wanted the student to be prepared for the in-class discussion. Kind of on that note, Tim did this last year in his mythology classes in the summertime, taught a traditional one and then a hybrid one. So, great experiment in one summer. And was really pleased with the experience in the hybrid class, just felt that the students were much more prepared for the in-class discussions. And for him, as he describes himself, he is an epic lecturer. He has epic lecture voice. He's awesome. So he loves to lecture. So it was real hard for him to give that part up. So it was a trade-off. Some lecture online using a product called VoiceThread, and then preserved a little bit, but really turned it into good discussion in class. So let's just look at adaptive release here real quick. And what I'll do is I'll go in here. So I have a fake little, well, actually, this is a discussion board. And let's say what I want students to do, or, well, it's a group assignment. Let's say what I want students to do is I don't want them to do the discussion board assignment until they tell me that they have reviewed, and this was a jing that I created, right, a little video. I want them to review this jing before they get to even do the discussion board. I want to make sure that they say, yes, I've watched the video before they get to do the discussion board assignment. Now, again, I can't ensure that they watched the video. They might just poke the button and say they reviewed it, but chances are, hopefully, I'd figure that out based on what they wrote in the discussion board. So the first thing I would need to do is I would need to enable review on this video. So in Blackboard, let me see if I can't scroll it down anymore. If I edit it, I can either, actually, sorry, not edit. I just want to enable review. Set review status, right there. I can set review status, and what that's going to do is it's going to create a little radio button that students can push and say, yep, reviewed it. So I'm going to set my review status. I'm going to enable it. And if I go back and look, it's just going to say review enabled. But if I toggle up at the top to edit mode off, remember this is how I would, up in the upper right corner, I've turned the edit mode off. Now I'm looking at the class as though I were a student. See how there's this cute little button? They would get to mark it as reviewed. And once you click that button, it would say reviewed. So again, I can't force them to watch the video, but I can force them to click that button that tells me they watched it. So at least they're going to have to admit that they lied to me.
Is there a way of sort of setting it up so the video has to run all the way through before they can click the button?
Not with this, no. You could do something like, at the very end of your Jing video, say, you're going to have to mark this as reviewed to get access to anything else. And, they could all tell each other and lie, or they might just poke the button anyway. But okay, so now I'm going to go to this discussion board, and I'm going to set up, whoops, I have to go back and turn this on. And now what I'm going to do is add an adaptive release tool. So if I click here, I'm going to choose adaptive release. Now, I'm going to caution you a little bit. The first time you use adaptive release, you should be a little bit cautious because I know lots of people who get super frisky and they build themselves into a circular path of never being able to do an assignment. So, you have to do 1 before you get to 2. You have to do 2 before you get to 3. And then they go, you have to do 4 before you get to 4. That's never going to happen, right? I can't get to 4 to do it in order to get through it, right? So I've seen this happen not without fail the first time somebody uses it, but I've seen it happen a lot. So you have to be a little careful when you think about how you're setting things up. And you also have to have all your assignments ready before you, or all your items, content, assignments ready before you start invoking adaptive release. So you can't put an adaptive release rule on something if the dependency doesn't exist yet. So again, what are our choices? We can use date. You can do that anyway. Membership, I could put in specific usernames. I only want this student. Maybe you have a student, for whatever reason, they don't take tests on campus. I had a visually impaired student once, and the machine on campus just never worked. So I would give her a modified exam, also because, like she couldn't see the graphs on my exam. So I would modify my exam, and then I would make it available just to her so she could actually take it at home on her machine. And I could email it to her, or I could actually put it in Blackboard and control access so that only she saw it, right? So that's kind of cool. Or I could make something available to a whole group. You'd have to have your group set up. Or down here, even spiffier, this is the grade section. So we could say, you're not going to get access to this discussion board until you have a grade on some random column here, until the user has at least one attempt for whatever this random assignment was that I just clicked on. Hopefully you would be more organized than this. Or you could even say you have to have an actual score of something. So we could say the student has to have, on that particular assignment, they have to have a score of greater than or equal to, well, let's do percent, 80%. You could do 100% for a syllabus quiz. You can do whatever you want. I have seen lots of people, actually relatively recently, forget to change the less than or equal to greater than or equal to. So students are trying really hard to get hundreds on quizzes, and they are, but the rule was set up that you had to have less than like an 80. And everybody was actually getting better than an 80, so no one could access the new thing. We all had a good laugh over it when it was done. Okay, so that's one option. Or down here, the review status. That's really what I want to use here. So I'm going to unclick this thing up here, take it back to none. So what I want to say is that somebody has to, and where am I even? I think I'm under resources. Somebody has to have seen, am I under resources? This is a really complicated thing. Somebody has to have seen, or clicked on whatever it was. They have to have clicked on whatever this was in order to be able to see that next component. I just have way too much stuff in here, so I can't figure out what I'm looking for. And then you just submit. In this case, review wasn't turned on for the thing that I picked because I didn't pick the other thing that I'd originally turned it on for. I can turn it on there. Sure. Oh, right. It's telling me that I don't have. Yeah, that's just a standard error. Just ignore that. It's very fitting that it's going to do this to me at the very end. So, one thing that you can do is start thinking about how do you want to control access to content. Do you want to control access to content? You can force students to kind of pace themselves and work through things in a logical format. You can't actually get to the next thing until you've done this thing. Some people will use adaptive release to control on an online course. They don't want students to actually do the entire course the first 2 weeks of the semester. They want them to stay in sync with the rest of their peers, so they'll open chunks of the course up kind of periodically. So within a 3-week span of time, you've got a lot of latitude about what you do in that particular unit. But you can't do the unit in November when everybody else is still back in September, right? There are a couple of great examples. If we go back, and this will be the last thing I'll say here really, if you go back through on this managing content using adaptive release, if you go back through and look at these examples here, and there are some other resources here. Tim Hardy, who teaches accounting classes, he uses adaptive release pretty ruthlessly. So students literally have to work through the accounting material step by step. So he makes them, you read a little bit of a chapter, you take a quiz. You keep taking that quiz until you get 100% on it. Then you get to do the next little bit. You keep taking it until you get 100%. He doesn't give the answers back to people, right? This is accounting. It builds on itself. None of that counts for the grade. When you're done with all the little bits of the chapter, now you're at the end of the unit, you have one shot at one quiz on Blackboard that comes from a test pool. Many of the questions come from those practice ones you've already had. That counts for your grade. Once you've taken that, then you move on to the next section. So it's very, very, very stepwise. His students hate it because it actually forces them to do the work. How dare he? But you know what? His students do, they have a common final exam in the department across all people who teach for those accounting classes. His students traditionally do 20% better on that common final exam than the other instructors. For this past spring, I think it was 122, I can't remember, his students, the average on their final exam, it's out of 50 points, I think, was a 39, whereas the overall class average was about a 32. That ain't bad, right? And that's consistent semester after semester, so it's just not an anomaly of, that weird little clump of students that he happened to get that semester. So, it can be very powerful if it's used correctly. So kind of next steps.
All online? Is that all online?
He teaches face-to-face, hybrid, and online. So it depends on the semester. He does hybrid, and then his online ones typically just in summer or winter. But it's across the board. It doesn't matter if it's a hybrid or online. I mean, he still makes them go through those steps, but the students do 20% better no matter what. I mean, they actually do better. And I should even add, it's a common final exam that he never sees, and he has no part in constructing. So it's not like he's teaching to the test that he made. He knows what concepts are going to be covered, and he makes sure his students know what those concepts are, because they want to go off and be CPAs, and we, of course, don't want them to ruin our taxes later on or something, right? We want them to be responsible accounting professionals, so they should, pass their certification. So I got like 1 minute left, so my parting shot, I have one handout right here that I'll put up here. And let me see if I can pull it up, because there are lots of cool resources. I'm really actually kind of not talking about ADP except in one little, there that was. Here we go. It's this document. There are some available resources for hybrid teaching and learning at UMBC. I should probably take my name out, but this is what I handed out about a week ago or a month ago. So both in instructional technology and faculty development. There's a variety of interesting reporting tools through Blackboard. Some of that's kind of changing in the future, but you'll be able to look at and see how your course compares with other courses, right? So how's the activity, not how your course, how is the activity level in your course compared to other courses in your discipline? So is there a lot of activity in your Blackboard class compared to the rest of your department or not? That can be useful information because it can help point you in directions. If you find somebody else that's got a lot of activity in your department, you should go yak at them and find out what cool things they're doing in Blackboard. The hybrid learning group I already told you about, right? That's the My UMBC group, and you're also in the organization, the hybrid organization that I kept showing. I've enrolled all of you today. There's an alternate delivery program that's in a little bit of flux, so I'm not going to say much about it. It allows some funding to redesign a course from face-to-face to hybrid or online delivery. It's supported ultimately through the provost office, but through summer and winter as well. If you have questions about that, again, program's kind of in flux. I may still be involved in that a little bit. I would refer you to John in the future, so at least immediately. But two other really awesome resources, one of which at least is free to you. UMBC is a member of the Sloan Consortium, so there are some Sloan C workshops. So if you go to that website, we have a College Pass program that UMBC gets 100 free seats in these workshops that are any place from about $169 to $269. They're about a week long. They're intense. They probably take 8 to 10 hours to complete. And they cover tons of different topics like online basics, like you're new to online, just the essentials, Web 2.0 tools, MOOCs. There are some cool ones about gamification, so doing games for STEM classes. There's ones incorporating GIS. There's ones about increasing engagement in discussions, how to get better interaction with students, how to, assessments, workload, faculty workload, how not to go crazy. I mean, every topic you can possibly think of. So if you go to these websites, you can look at the list of workshops, and this information, if you go here and you're logged into My UMBC, you can get access to the code that you need when you register for one of these workshops, so they are free to you. First come, first serve, all right? So when we use up our 100 seats, they're just gone and you don't get any more until the next year. And then finally, UMBC is an institutional member of Quality Matters, which is an organization that has a faculty-centered peer review process to certify the quality of online and blended courses. It's really the design of those courses, not so much the delivery, because there could be a difference, but the design of the courses. They have lots of really good workshops. In fact, there's an intro to the Quality Matters through Sloan, and I would suggest maybe doing that one first. Quality Matters are much more intense. They're a couple weeks long, and they demand a lot more out of you. But there's one called Applying the Quality Matters rubric to your course. They have a 41-point rubric that's just like amazing, but it'll help you figure out what it is you actually need in your course itself on Blackboard. So 3 minutes over, all right, but I'm good because we originally said 3:30. So thanks very much. It's been awesome. I am like completely delighted that I got to spend my last day with you guys. And don't forget to take your sticky notes and free stuff on your way out the door. So you got your handouts. Are we good for me? And please don't headsets.
Don't take your Post-it notes and markers with you. Please put them back in the baggie, and we'll pick them up and reuse them.
Yeah, if I could, just one thing. I know we're absorbing a lot here, folks. And Karen, don't forget to stop the cam relay so that you can get that process in. If you are totally fried, if you would like to join us, we are having a happy hour farewell for Karen at 3:30. Hence the book. But again, thanks for your time here. I know I'm